Welcome to Innovate, presents Entrepreneurs in Tech. Today, we're delighted to have our guest, Alisha Outridge, who is a CTO of Black Lion. Alicia, thank you for joining us today. And could you start by introducing yourself and providing insights on your or into your entrepreneurial life and business leadership coaching background?
Right. Now, first of all, thank you for having me. It's like so long overdue, and I'm so glad that I could be here to talk with you about this topic. And entrepreneurship has always been just core to my existence. I started off just as a teenager, really just building my own websites, but before that, I was a painter. I was an artist that just sort of made paintings and sold it out in the streets of New York City.
I didn't know that. I know you for a while. We talked a lot, but I didn't know that. You
Yep,
kidding
I'm
me?
an
Are you
artist
really?
who taught herself how to code. I know. Like
Wow.
I went from Barbies and oil paint to tech and building things in tech. And that whole like foundation and that transition was really coming from that creativity of how could I get my work out to the most amount of people. And so that was actually how I even transitioned into tech, because all artists are entrepreneurs. Just inherently, you need to adapt and figure out how to use the tools at your disposal to create something new. That is entrepreneurship at its core. So when I think about how I got into entrepreneurship, it is that oil painting side of me that went to LaGuardia School of the Arts. And I got in actually LaGuardia School of the Arts, Fame School, for singing, drama, and art. So,
You know, amaze me. You still amaze me. Even we've been speaking for a long time. Even in your own interview, I'm amazed. So you were an artist, and then
mhm,
but you somehow you mixed music and tech together.
that's
With your
right.
creative background, obviously, you have that in you.
Mhm.
And how did this whole thing come about by mixing it together?
Well, and I might date myself a little with this, but my first corporate job, I had started working in startups, as an engineer, and my first corporate senior technical product manager job was at AOL in AOL Entertainment. And AOL Music had owned a lot, like almost all of the publications online across all genres, and also had AOL Radio, and had its own not only just radio stations but interviews, and it was kind of the internet
But
platform.
that was when? What, back in the 90s?
No, okay, so not that old, not that much dating
Because what
myself,
are you
but
like 13 years old, 14 years old back then?
that was the early 2000s.
Uh huh.
So after the 90s, but I actually started off in tech when I was well, actually when I was 15, and in startups, and then in about like the late the or like the mid 2000s, that was when I actually got my first senior product management job, and that was in AOL Music, where there at that time, and that's where the timing's important. I wouldn't just date myself on some podcast for
Sure.
nothing, because the timing at that point was that Spotify was something that was just starting to really kind of come out there, and the ways that people were making money online in the music industry was trying to figure out how to adapt to digital. So
Hmm.
because I was working in emerging tech, which kind of was personalization, recommendation, social platforms, and journalism. At that time, AOL was building out Platform A, which was their sort of relaunch into digital to make money by having regular people write content instead of only journalists write content, and have setting up a whole advertising model around that, which later led to their acquisitions of Huffington Post and TechCrunch. So I bring that perspective in of like mixing music and
Hmm.
tech was just what the internet was doing at that time. And so if you were working in a
That was the new era that the
it was the
music
new
business
era.
was facing. Something
Yeah.
new. Yeah. Even anything, I think all kind of content, whether it's visual, movies, and all of that, and digital, audio.
They were all getting
Yeah.
impacted by it. And at that point, at the transition that I came on, the like text media as well as photos media was severely impacted by this, where you could just take a picture of a painting, put it online, and you can write whatever content you want. Like, you don't even need to be a journalist anymore. You can write content and you'll write it for free because, oh, your name's on the internet. But those journalists had jobs that they were actually getting paid for. So those medias were easy and to impact. Music was the one that was next up around the time when I had started working at AOL. And movies and TV, they were a larger form of media. So of course they ended up actually following what the music industry did to protect themselves, because it just took weeks to download a movie, but you could take half a day to download
Yes.
a song, and people did download songs. And Pirates Bay, well, it was Pirates Bay versus Spotify. So me getting into the music industry was really tackling a lot of those problems. So how I can build platforms to at large the large company I was at, which was AOL, to be able to give musicians and the music industry actually platforms to be able to embrace fans legally and get the voice out in on the internet. But if you fast forward a bit more recent, like I kind of stayed in that track of working in the entertainment and the emerging tech industry, going into computer vision tech. And we'll get to some of that later.
Well, as it's the music business kept evolving in the tech end of it, and you kept evolving with it, and you stayed
Yeah.
on course with it. Amazing.
Hmm.
Um, so from AOL, at that point in time, AOL was one of the hottest tech emerging technology companies out there. Everybody wanted to work for them
Yeah.
back then. Yeah, in '90s, late, early 2000s, correct?
Yeah. The early
Yeah.
to mid 2000s. So like
I
what,
hope you
roughly.
owned some stock from then, back then, of
Huh?
AOL. I hope you owned some stock back then of AOL.
I did. They were actually the top. They
I
were voted.
know.
They were voted a top stock like right up until 2017.
You kidding me? Really? Until 2017?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
I was
Amazing.
surprised. I was like, oh wow, I sold some around then. So that's what I knew.
From AOL, so did you go directly and work for Meta or iHeartRadio first?
I went to I actually like left AOL,
AOL.
and I started working in startups and social platforms, like completely on. Well, in the entertainment industry and a lot of industries use Kick Apps as their platform. So I got to work across a broad range of media and entertainment companies. Kick Apps was essentially white label.
Yeah.
Facebook. But after Kick Apps was sold, then I went back to I kind of worked on some startups and went to iHeartRadio before I went to Facebook. And I was there at a unique time at iHeartRadio where they were transitioning from being sort of iHeartRadio to being iHeartMedia. And
What made you take that job? I mean, it's like, you know what? I want to work for iHeartRadio. Wasn't that like the tech company? AOL, I understand, Meta, I got it. But, working for startup, but what say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take that opportunity and go work for iHeartRadio.
because I was offered a role that I cared very much about, of being the head of innovation, to define what the future of how fans connected with creatives at that media scale. So it felt like sort of this return back to what I was working on at AOL, but in a completely different era. So that was probably around like 2012, where 2012, 2014, perhaps, where at that time, like you had like at that time, really, iHeart Radio was making money, making a lot of money,
Mhm.
but that the audience was changing, and digital was changing, and platforms like Spotify and Pandora were starting to kind of try to get margin, because the radio has the best licenses to be able to get paid, but digital had the most range. And what was easier to sort of like execute at scale, but there was
Mhm.
a lot of business complications. So iHeartRadio was just really fascinating to me, because I got to take all of my tech experience and really build out a new media platform that could survive to connect fans. And we had launched some super amazing things like, I built personalized radio and music taste profile engines while I was at iHeart, so that when you could like iHeart had this unique data set that no other music media company at that time really had, because they had over 70 years of editorial training data on what people liked, what they listened to, where they were located, and what the segmented
Amazing.
sociographic and demographic data was. So if you
Amazing.
wanted to build AI and machine learning back then in music, iHeart
Had
is
the
where,
data, had the
yeah,
whole data. Yep.
yeah. And you had all of these DJs and people in the music industry that were just sitting around listening to and watching, and had live events to be able to do live
Amazing.
feedback.
Hmm. Unbelievable. And so, what I say, what was your top? I would say your top moments, or some of the things that stood out for you, you're proud of, or stood out for you at iHeartRadio.
Oh gosh, well, one of my favorite moments was when I wonder if I can say this. I'll say it.
Please.
When Twitter bought We're the Hunted,
Uh huh.
and Twitter came over to me at iHeart and said, "Hey, we want to tell you what music fans like." And because we're Twitter, we have all this information, and we're going to give this back to you. But you just have to pay us X amount, and we're doing you a favor. And I told them, if I pull all of iHeart's 1,500 radio stations off of Twitter, you won't know what people are listening to. All of your data is our data. Like know your audience. Like, and they were like, oh well, we have other users that are providing information too. And I was like, okay, prove it.
Wow.
They ended
Amazing.
up obviously like they said, oh well, we are, if we don't have these 1,500 stations posting every few minutes what people are listening to, what they care about, doing polls, putting their fan base there, we don't have
That's a
it.
lot of stations.
It's a
1,500
lot.
stations.
uh,
That's a lot of
and
stations. And a lot of data and a lot of fans and a lot of listeners.
yeah,
Amazing. This is a
and
lot. Yes.
and like that is, well, that's the beauty of the music industry, where like kind of to tie back some of that, well, why do I choose to work at in music and in music tech instead of just sort of going into tech? And it's because there's a human element of what people love listening to, that when you're only on the tech side, you look at numbers and you think that you know it, but you don't actually control the levers for like all of those people that are why people thumb up some songs and why they don't thumb up some songs, why they thumb down, who they're sharing their playlist with, and all of that outside, like meeting people in person,
Yeah.
offline, that's happening.
Well, you know what? It seemed like back then that iHeartRadio had a crucial and massive data set for the music industry that really could use they could use it. I mean, if AI been around for a long time, but if some of the
Mhm.
people say, you know what, let's create something out of this data and use it for the music industry, and they would probably been the winner. Yeah.
Well, and when I built out the personalized radio station product at iHeart, I had a partnership with Google as well as Facebook
Mm,
and Twitter back then, to leverage all of their data sets versus ours, and also combining in addition to ours, to be able to predict if I could choose how many times I could choose the next song to let people enable people to keep on listening. And what I noticed was that iHeart's data had the most rich context to it.
mm,
Where because it had that mix of all that demographic, sociographic data, as well as that editorial curation, which leveraged a lot of data that those platforms didn't have until we give it to them, of course. So fast forward now, I would actually say that iHeart has done a very good job at extending that data set even more. We have other platforms out there that also have a lot more data related to why people like music and listen to music. Spotify, YouTube, all of these platforms. But at the end of the day, they're all siloed
mm.
in their own world. And yeah,
Let's talk about your transition from iHeartRadio. Now, I don't know if there's a gap between iHeartRadio and Facebook
I
Meta.
went exactly
Yeah.
there.
Oh, just direct transition.
Went direct transition over to Facebook. I was never a MetaMate. I was a Facebooker.
Yes. But I'm 100% you were recruited. You did not say, "Hey, I want to work there." Definitely you were
I
recruited.
say I'll say that I was invited to a dinner, and that dinner became a 2-day event at Facebook's office,
Ah,
and a camping trip actually over the weekend. And it was the strangest interview that wasn't an interview.
and then how long you stayed at Facebook?
About 2 years.
Amazing. Wow. And you also contributed a lot in Facebook.
Yeah, I loved that. Now I had actually thought, well, at that time, God, it was like 10 years ago. But I thought Facebook was so big back then, and now it's even bigger. So people, when I talk to people there now, they tell me, "Oh, you were there in the early days," but Facebook was pretty small at the time when I was there. There were a total of 200 product managers across the world. And we're talking product and design as well. Most people still reported directly into Zuckerberg.
Hmm.
At that time, I got to work with a lot of AI and machine learning products to scale out how people connect with each other, and music in the music vertical, as well as just things like people you may know. And got to I was really lucky where at that time we were still doing hackathons over the weekend, and some of the things that I hacked, there were about two or three products that I had hacked that went all the way to the top to Zuckerberg and got approved to go live.
Wow.
One of them was patented, and like is a patented technology. And there were about two or three, only one still active. I know, but they became really key patents to power products like Instagram ads that exist today, to predict what people are interested in, how they connect with each other, and how they might be able to connect on to, well, probably buy the same similar things, but in Facebook events too, suggesting people to invite to an event.
Unbelievable. I'm going to ask the same question. What standout moments you had also at Facebook?
Oh,
Such things, it's always intriguing, and it's for the audience of entrepreneurs in tech and for me.
well, I can say that I something that was really stand out for me at Facebook was that I there was such an interesting, it was really like a campus, like a college campus,
Yes.
and where everyone kind of got to mingle together. We all, I guess, have our t-shirts and our clubs, and all you could mix across all the clubs. Each team was like a school club that you could connect with. You could collaborate on projects. There was a lot of side work that people did outside of their main work. And
Hmm.
something I was always proud of when I was there was that Google kind of had to make a rule to do that, where Google was kind of like the big, like, mature company, and Facebook was like this, like, big startup type of vibe. And I really love how Facebook maintained that. And I think that they maintained that for quite a long time, because even when I was there, they were still a very big company, but they flew everyone over across the world to, like, start together.
Hmm.
Uh, like, so if you were, whatever day that you started at Facebook, everyone who started on that day were flown over to Menlo Park to start working together,
Wow,
and
that's
did a
amazing.
boot camp onboarding for about a month and a half. That where you just worked on projects together. And I think that that was something that I took that with me after Facebook, where I try to maintain some aspect of that by having my teams today as a leader, like now as a CTO. I really love enabling people to be creative and hack on things, but not doing it in some fake way where you put 10 or 20% of your time towards something. Really putting it in the backlog for them
Amazing.
to hack and deploy and test.
Let's talk about your position as a chief product officer at Flyby and Reuters TV.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I mean, what challenges did you face being played that role as the chief product officer at these both companies?
Well, the cool thing about a chief product officer role is that you're kind of like the CEO, but you don't need to manage the finances of the entire company.
Hmm.
So, and for Flyby, what for Flyby, what that meant was Flyby was a really small startup, and it was a computer vision startup, which is like AI vision tech, and it scaled to the point of partnering with Google to be able to build out features in Google Maps, and when it was an official Google X partner,
Hmm.
to being acquired by Apple, like many years later, to become Apple's AR kit feature. And that feature, essentially, every time you take a picture with your iPhone, you see like you open your camera and you see it like recognize boxes and recognize stuff. That was what Flyby's technology was, where you could see the
Amazing.
world using your camera. And so
Wow.
one of the most challenging things when you're dealing with this new technology is how do you, and I think all entrepreneurs can relate to this when they're starting a company, how do you build something that people can use that's also good for your business? And are you doing it at the right time where it can be used? And the challenge that Flyby had while I was there was that they really wanted to test out building consumer products, but it was really a B2B feature. And there wasn't a consumer audience to
Hmm.
sort of like there wasn't a long-standing consumer audience that you could put out there to use this technology. It was too hard to understand. But you could like so testing out and iterating on a lot of ideas and doing it fast, so failing fast was really how I had approached it with the team, so that we could build out the tech. We needed to take pictures of a lot of things and and like work on this slam computer vision AR tech, fail fast and like do the partnership so that we could get acquired. And for emerging tech like that users don't understand, that you can't really launch on its own,
Hmm.
you kind of have a fast acquisition path within about 3 to 5, like 2 to 5 years.
2 to 5 years max.
Yeah, if it's like a lot of the AI companies that are out now too, I would tell them the same thing. Like you really need to look at what if is this something users can understand, because you do not have $1 billion marketing budget
Hmm.
to teach people how to do this, and you have to be really realistic, and you need to have your tech good, and then you can have an acquisition path where you could build something that's on like every single iPhone across, or
Who end
Samsung
up buying the
across the
company?
world.
Ah, who?
Apple
Apple acquired it
acquired it.
while you were working there.
Yeah, like right after. So
Interesting. We won't
so
ask the numbers. We wouldn't ask how much.
yeah, no, I'm giving away too many years here. And Reuters TV was fascinating. Like
Uh-huh.
Reuters, obviously big company. Reuters TV was like a small startup in a big company, and I've been lucky career wise where I've been working in a lot of emerging tech, building out these new things, and like when large companies want to do something. High impact and like get it tested out into market, and Reuters TV is a great example of that. When I had joined, it was an app that and after and when I when it stopped being around, it was an app where you could get a TV show on your phone that's personalized based on your interests and time to tell you the news. So it's your own personalized news show. And
Hmm.
it was on your phone, it was on your laptop, and it rendered on the fly, which rendering and cutting that much video live that quickly was something that both iPhones and Android were just building the technology and hardware in their phones to do. So we partnered with both of those companies to test this out. And Apple TV had just, I think they had the second version at that time, but Reuters TV became an award-winning app. To like be this visual video immersive news experience powered by Reuters. It was a beautiful project, and it launched. It had a great test bed of users, being Reuters and like news followers. Um, so yeah, like that. The biggest challenge I would say there really came down to what is this product supposed to be long term? Because the challenge you have with a product like that is that
Hmm.
the way for you to own the whole market is you need all of the news. You can't only have some of the news because somebody else will make a new news aggregator and video show. But I don't think one
Correct.
exists yet.
Then let's talk about when you transition to TuneCore. Now, that's your second job in the music industry after iHeart, correct?
That's right.
Yes, and
Mhm.
you were the Chief Technology Product Officer,
Yes,
CTPO.
I know.
Amazing. Yes.
It's the most challenging part of the job, like telling people what a CTO is, what a CPO, and then how it's mixed together.
How, I'm sure you worked on a really amazing, should I say, exciting product at TuneCore. I don't know, TuneCore wanted to always be ahead and up front, of everybody as far as tech,
Mhm.
because, they are a DIY distribution platform for music artists.
Mhm.
So please enlighten us in some of the exciting projects that you worked on at TuneCore while you were there. TuneCore is owned by Believe Digital.
Yeah.
Yes.
TuneCore, TuneCore was just this culmination of my my artists, like the artists in me, the technologists in me, and the sort of the product maker in me, for just being able to kind of go back to everything I had done up until that point of leveraging technology to be able to open up opportunities in the music industry and in the creative industry. And by this point, just so like, and I was at TuneCore like up until last year,
Mhm.
uh, the, we're back at this crucial point of actually when the same crucial point where when I was at AOL Music, where the music industry has this changing business model and structures that's happening. And at TuneCore, I was lucky enough to be able to talk with like the leaders across the whole industry about how we're going to approach that. And I was
Mhm.
able to represent this key base of creatives and independent artists that I like just strongly relate to, of how do you do the art that you love and do the things that you love and learn and grow across your career as a human music creator in this industry,
Mm.
alongside all the changes that are happening. So one of the most impactful, I worked on. I'm lucky enough that my amazing team, we worked on a lot of impactful things, but we had released some AI research on a study like this. Surveys that we had done that's you can see it live on if it's still up there. I think it is tunecore.com/AI,
Mhm.
where our research team talked to artists about what they were they using AI, how did they use AI, how would they like to use AI, what's important to them, and what concerns do they have. And at the time that we had published that, we had spoken to the most artists that anyone had published anything on at that time. And
Mhm.
we released it out to the world and or out to the industry, and like went and spoke at conferences, went and had just like private sessions and FAQs with artists through our marketing teams, just talking to artists about here are the tools out there, here are the things you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
And we even launched like special projects with our artists to enable them to understand AI and machine learning better through some programs to be able to just be able to use these tools. So I know I thought that was like a super cool project. I love putting that information out there in the space.
Mhm.
And I loved like really it was referenced a lot when other people were looking at how do we build things in the music industry that artists actually want. What do we need to take into account? And we even had private like private meetings with a lot of the big tech companies to be that voice.
Alicia, how do you, manage your time? You always on the go. You're involved in many things. One of them, I know you're one of the lead speakers or permanent speakers also at South by Southwest. Every year I see you popping up there. Amazing. You tackle on certain, important subjects. And also you are a tech comedian on
Yes.
Snark Tank. What, you know what? I don't mean to be ignorant. What is a tech comedian? Please, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And as they say, put my foot in my mouth. So please, for me first, and for our audience and listeners at Entrepreneurs in Tech.
It's a really good question because I,
Yes.
I invented that term. So, but it
I
was
like
written.
it though. You should actually trade it. I like it. It's
I
really a cool,
might
a tech
trademark
comedian.
it.
What is that? Yes.
So like tech comedy is this trend that started the last few years, and I consider it. I when I looked at there's a lot of roast shows and comedians and people that were in tech that started doing comedy as
Hmm.
well. But then you have like popular roast shows that are getting going viral online, where people are creating content that sort of make fun of geeks. And we've always had this, where you have like people like engineers will say like, this is what I today I learned, like type of information on what how their managers were acting, and how other engineers, like, you have code jokes where people will look at someone's code and be like, what was this person on when they made it? But this is just an extension of that, where tech comedy is really making fun, like kind of laughing while we cry through innovation, as I call it, because there's a lot of now tech is eating itself, where we have, and maybe it's too soon to laugh, but we have a lot of changes that are happening
Big time.
because
Yes.
tech is actually displacing us now. And people are worried, and they're like, so you have to, instead of innovating, as an engineer, you always needed to like level up your skills every, or like continuously, but you could get away with maybe like, oh, every 3 to 5 years. Now it's every 1 to 2 years, like where you might, if you don't keep up with the pace of what's happening, you're going to be displaced because you just won't be able to perform as well as somebody using better tools than you.
Yes.
So
Well,
that's what
just to
tech
clear that
comedy.
for our audience, displaced not by a machine, no, displaced by somebody who knows the tools better.
Exactly. It's
Yes.
the people using the tools, and the people in the tech industry are the people making the tools. So like we're almost like cannibalizing ourselves. But like that's the way it always has been. It's just that the pace has just increased now because we can do more.
Uh-huh.
And like this, it's kind of like if you only used HTML, JavaScript, and PHP, like the same way you did, the same way somebody did 15 years ago or even 10 years ago, you wouldn't be able to work today.
Hmm.
So you shouldn't be surprised. And even 5 years ago, there's so much change that has happened, and 5 years prior to that. So it's more the same. But Snark Tank, the we were actually featured on Washington Post, by the
Hmm.
Washington Post and Forbes, and it's essentially like Shark Tank, where that old show back in the day. But on Snark Tank, a lot of people are starting companies, and you don't really get real feedback on your
Hmm.
idea
Hmm.
from VCs and investors and people like me that kind of know product, know how to build things, know about how to
Yes.
actually bring it to market. So we give them feedback in a way that snarky, kind of makes fun of everything, and makes you laugh. And they even bite back too. So it's always fun when they bite back as well. And once you pitch on Snark Tank, it's way
Yeah.
easy to pitch in front of an investor.
You also teach at Brown University and Hunter College. Hunter's in New York and Brown is in Maryland, correct? Delaware, Maryland.
Providence. Yeah,
Oh,
Providence, Rhode
Providence?
Island.
Oh, Providence,
Yeah,
Rhode
Rhode
Island.
Island.
Okay, okay.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
which university? That's the big one in Maryland, isn't it? I forgot. I
Um,
thought Brown is there. So I guess I got my geographic mixed up.
yeah.
Okay. You know
Hmm.
what? Yes. I
No worries.
apologize. Excuse me.
No worries.
um, how do you make time for all of that? Between you sit on the board of a few companies, you're a CTO,
Hmm.
you're an advisor for quite a few companies that I'm aware of already,
Hmm.
and we haven't discussed yet, but we're going to bring him on, and we're going to talk
Hmm.
about it in the show in a minute. And how do you make the time? Do you do this virtually, or you actually travel to Brown University up in Rhode Island? You give your classes once a week or twice a week, and then you go and you do classes also in New York. Plus, everything else that you do is the speaking, the events, the tech events that you involve in, and all of that.
So I've been working with Brown University the last few years, and that has been, I've always had this academia track in my career. Along, I
Hmm.
kind of have two tracks in my resume, and like I think this is important for anybody who is an entrepreneur and wants to kind of work in tech that changes so much. You have to always be in this mode of building, learning, and testing, and I apply that approach to myself,
Hmm.
where I'm building a lot in my main corporate, my main job track, And then I'm learning a lot in my kind of always being exposed to new ideas and new people in my academia track. And then the testing side was like kind of the startup track. So we'll get to that later because some of that is merged. But when it comes to balancing my time, I'm for my academia track. It's mostly remote, and like where I don't commute to. I don't need to commute to Rhode Island. I'm in the master's. I teach in the master's program as well, so that is more advanced where I don't need to be in person. A lot of them are professionals across the U.S.
Hmm.
Where they're working on their main projects for their masters, and it's in technology leadership. So my students were are directors and managers at Google, at Delta Airlines, like at like like AI startups and like other startups and big companies like Reuters even. So they range across their companies actually sponsor to their master's program usually. So they're working on unique projects that they're actually deploying in their company. So I work with them and partner with them to execute that. So that's all
Hmm.
remote. And so that's how I balance a lot of my academia career alongside my full time work. And it's a few hours a month of like working on some really cool things across a broad range of companies. And help always has helped me keep my mind always thinking of new ways to approach things and recognizing the patterns of how technology is being implemented across multiple industries.
And this is a great way to keep updated. I mean, you're always being updated and current up to what's happening, what some of the new talent, the new entrepreneurs, the new tech
Mm.
minds, the thinking and creating.
Yeah, and that's the best way to kind of like that I found to really keep my mind from just sticking to what works, because what works at my job is like isn't necessarily. I mean, I usually manage large teams, 200 plus people. Like what works for that type of company, or what works for me and like three other people in a room type of company, isn't going to be what works across a broader range. And having that flexibility to even just talk to an 18-year-old where and they ask a question that I just haven't thought of because I've been doing this for so long. Being able to answer that question is something that helps me even like reinforce and double check everything. And that's where like now I'm actually teaching an intro to entrepreneurship course at Hunter College, which is my alma mater. Like this fall, it starts next week. I'm so excited because this is my first time actually teaching a full course as a professor to 17 year
Well,
olds.
congratulations. Congratulations. Wow,
Yes. And
amazing. Very
any of
impressive, Alicia. Very impressive. Professor, so you know what? We have to add that to your name now. Professor Alicia. That's it.
oh no, I'm just gonna be Alicia. No.
I'll change the introduction after we finish the interview. I'll change the whole introduction. We'll add
but
professor.
I love that I have this opportunity to teach this younger generation because
Unbelievable.
like these are 17 and 18-year olds that I'm going to be at. That's in person here in New York, and like they've lived in a totally different time than me, and like the big question they have, and one of the things I love about it being my alma mater too, is that they wonder how they can make an impact. How do you make an impact in a world where you can type into Google and type into quote unquote Google a text box, and it thinks more than you know anything about, and it like does all of the thinking for you. And learning how to problem solve is something that you almost can't that they don't have as much experience doing. They don't have to remember anything. And
Mhm.
like that's really kind of the crucial thing that I want to make sure I convey alongside teaching them just how to run a business. Maybe I can meet
Let,
some billionaires.
I'm sure, and you'll be part of, with them also.
I'll have to be an advisor, get my
Yeah.
cut. Maybe they'll
Alicia,
invite me to the party.
yes. Let's talk about your latest venture, which I
Mm,
met, virtually. I was going to say personally, but virtually, I met the founders of this company
mhm,
called Black Lion. They're out of the UK, two amazing brothers, definitely tech heads, these guys. They know what they're doing. One was tech in the car industry. I think he worked for Bugatti and he worked for
mhm,
McLaren. And his
mhm,
brother also worked for a major label. He was involved in A&R and
Yeah.
publishing. So he pretty much really knew, like, learned and have the experience of the music business from all
Hmm.
different corners of it.
Yeah.
And they started Black Lion. And come to find out later that you were the CTO of them. I'm like, okay, wherever I go, Alicia got to pop out. Unbelievable. Wherever there's a
You're
new
great at
innovation,
you're good at
innovating tech.
identifying the coolest tech.
Yes.
We just have
every
to move
new Yes, every new innovation in the tech and music industry, Alicia is part of it, and you're leading that as a chief technical officer. Please
Mhm.
tell us about your role there and how, obviously AI is a big part of their technology and Black
Yeah.
Lion, infrastructure. How do you guys looking to take, to kind of shake up the whole industry? I mean, I knew what it's all about. They explained it to me. You explained it to me. I read the pitch deck. I was pretty much really impressed, and I can't
Mhm.
wait to have both brothers on the show on my other podcast, Soundbreaker. Yeah. So please, the floor is all yours. This is your
Well,
latest venture.
and I like it stays really in that vein of ultimately, how do we define what music is worth, and how
Hmm.
are creatives getting defined uh, what their worth is. And what we've seen of as over time is that they really don't have much control over that, and there isn't much transparency over that. Everyone they talk to will has a different opinion on just okay, what are you worth? Like how much risk are you? And what Black Lion, what we solve at Black Lion is a few things. Number one, Black Lion is an AI powered fintech for the music industry platform. We automate a lot the iteration of the product that's being worked on that is live now with customers is a platform for businesses, so labels, A&R teams, like music tech companies. We have this automation AI type platform that automates a lot of their back office to be able to evaluate artists careers, and actually automate financial modeling projections for what they're going to be worth based
Not
on.
to interrupt you, what is,
Yeah.
do you think, the probability? Like, what's the percentage? Just say this technology that Black Lion have and I'm leading is
Mhm.
about 90% accurate or 99% or 80% accurate. What's the accuracy percentage there?
It really depends on which. So
It's like
Black,
literally because you have a crystal ball. What are you saying?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, it's a
it's
pretty
very
impressive technology.
accurate.
Yeah.
It's very accurate in the as the iteration that we have now. So
Hmm.
I'll put like my like hyper critical tech hat on, where the iteration now is used by labels, and we know a lot about those artists because those labels are managed. But sorry, those artists are managed by those labels. So we
Hmm.
have the full spectrum of understanding on what their catalog is worth,
Hmm.
and what the songs are worth and what they're doing next. And we have direct financial statements on that that is managed in a sandbox, completely owned by our customers. So it's not something that's pushed out in the world, very, very private. And like that, we have the full breadth of being able to predict that with high accuracy. And as we scale further outside of that realm, then we'll get even more accurate because the more information, understanding, and insights that you have across
Yeah.
the whole spectrum, because we're working with songwriters, producers, and artists, and a broad, like different ranges of music tech, and tech enabled labels, as well as A&R teams in like different environments. So and don't even let me get into publishing. Like there's a whole ton of information there that
Hmm.
is really just siloed, and like putting that. So we're the financial modeling aspect of this is very accurate. Like we would say, we so far what we've launched with our customers has been like 97 to 99%
Wow.
accurate, and it's because we train it specifically for all of our customers.
You just
And
mentioned, don't let me get into publishing. Does it also give the evaluation of how much an artist being evaluated in the publishing side of the business?
we haven't launched that live,
Hmm.
so I'm working on scaling and improving that aspect of it.
I know
It's
publishers going to be all over Black Lion when that
it's
happens.
that's the and that's really what Black Lion's going for. What Black Lion is about empowering artists to be able to know what they're worth and be able to manage their business like this. Like we should have like some automated tools to be able to do everything you need to do for your music business on your phone, be able to see what you're worth, be able to do financial modeling and projections that all the companies that artists want to invest in them are doing that. And it's like when they're doing it using spreadsheets usually, and very smart people, very intense spreadsheets and valuations from very large companies that do valuations, and all of this can be automated and made available to every type of business in the music industry. And it's very similar to the stock market, and which is a topic I spoke about at South by Southwest about song stock exchanges. And when we talk about what the value of music is for people to invest in it, we can't, if we want investors to invest in music,
Yeah.
we need to make it easier to understand what it's worth, reveal the credit score for what an artist is worth, and like put it in their pocket and give them the tools to be able to grow their business.
So you're pretty much really changing the music, for music artists, for B2B and B2C, also for music artists, beside the empowerment, is the monetization for them.
Yeah, I consider all artists small businesses.
Yes.
Some of them are younger startups, newer startups. Some of them are
Hmm.
mid-sized startups, but an artist is a startup, and they should be getting tools to help them operate easier and better, and so that they can focus on what they do best.
Hmm.
They shouldn't have to be an accountant and an algorithm expert to be able to be able to earn a living. And
Not to jump off the rail here,
mhm.
or stay on track. I don't want to get off track. Um, can black line technology being used for other product than non-artist or music business or
Mhm.
music industry product? Let's say just any product,
Yes.
and you have the data obviously from the company who sells that product or manufacturer. So
Mhm.
somebody, let's say, want to acquire or invest in that company and say, hey, are you able to let me know what is that product is worth
Mhm.
based on all of this?
Technically, yes, we would have to change the training data,
Got it. Got
but
it.
it can. I mean, it's I liken it similar to my career where I had been doing AI, machine learning, and personalization recommendation engines
Mm,
across multiple entertainment sectors and industries, and the model itself is structured a certain way where you can work across creative industries very easily. And I would even say sports is a great is like a possible option there too, because
wow.
an athlete and
Yes. That could be even bigger than the music business
it could
because a
be.
lot of teams, they're trading athletes all the time, and it's big money in it, you know that. And they always want to evaluate each athlete like an artist. What are they worth
Mhm.
based on all the information and the data the team had on, from their followers to their fans to their merchandise sales to their deals that they have to their how many goals they score, whether they're playing football, soccer, baseball, basketball.
Mhm.
Wow, good
There's
idea.
there's a lot that can be done with
Uh huh.
that, but focus is key because you can't sort of do everything all at once. And something I think is very crucial about the creative space is that there is this challenge that we have in creative industries where the market isn't as big as some of the others, and it's very black box in a way that it's easy for technology to be able to change it without necessarily empowering sort of the creators in it.
Hmm.
It's almost like being a kindergarten teacher, where
Got it.
kindergarten teachers are very important for society, but they aren't paid as much as the teachers that come later in time. And like that actually impacts society significantly. And the if we don't get certain things right for empowering creatives and like empowering kindergarten teachers to be able to do that work, then we end up just sort of having to put a lot of money in fixing other things.
Um, Black Lions have two different platforms, one B2B, one B2C. If you can summarize the difference between both.
Mhm. Well, I actually consider the B2C as be to small business, and I frame it as like the B2B product is more of the enterprise product.
Hmm.
There's a difference between a label uh, and like a big label as a business in the music industry, and a small label, uh, and and then an artist that is a label too,
Hmm.
like an independent artist that has that's helping their friends with some music. And I was lucky enough that I got exposed to that broad spectrum of the indie music industry from talking with artists, and like while I was at TuneCore, just with one on one constantly for just how are they doing business, how are they using this, and how are they using my product at that time. So I consider B2B enterprise. The Black Lion B2B enterprise platform is what we have in market now, which
Hmm.
leverages our AI model and platform in a sandbox environment for those companies to be able to do their work better. And then we have the B2B small business, which is the direct to artist product, and empowering those artists to be able to manage their business easier and manage their careers easier is the goal of that. And the tools are adapted. There's tools that are adapted for that purpose. And if you're an artist,
Hmm.
the other product is a little bit too much. It has like a ton of things that you don't really need.
Um, I don't want to say the born of AI. AI been around 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, yes,
True. Yeah.
yes,
The first model was like
yes,
the 50s.
but it became more commercialized. Let's use that word. Much
Yeah.
easier. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You notice a born or the birth of so many new startups with young entrepreneurs, and some of them that you involve in. I'll mention some like Tap the Eyes and others.
Mm-hmm.
These are young entrepreneurs with great, fresh ideas, with tech knowledge and fresh ideas, and they come in, and there's so many, and like AI opened up the door. A lot of people say, "Oh, our job is going to be replaced." It's not really not going to be
Yeah.
replaced. New opportunities, and we could see it already. The result of it, massive amount of new tech, some in the entertainment, in music, and fashion, and technology, and healthcare, and education, and so forth. You see that flux of like should I say, a floodgate just opened up of
Yeah.
new, yes, and there's so much money being made. Obviously, what's your take on that, especially in the entertainment industry?
Mm-hmm. I think it really goes back to where in the entertainment industry in particular,
Yeah.
there there is this kind of constant like up and down, like opening and closing
Hmm.
of innovation. And in like 2000s, in like the mid 2000s, there was a lot of innovation of like, oh, we have new tech, wow, we love music, we can do all this cool music, let's well, we don't want to do sort of file sharing, but we want to enable people to share. And like social music was a huge thing that all the
Yes.
VCs were investing in. And then the music industry clamped down on that, and you couldn't do innovation anymore. It became you were sued into oblivion.
Yes.
and and then they left. All the tech people said, "Okay, we can't do this anymore."
Do
So
we
now
see that in Sona right now? Is that history repeating itself? Okay.
I didn't say it, but there's valid concerns for why there are
Mhm.
no laws to enable like the appropriate way of working with this technology.
Yeah.
And like, so you want to use this new technology, but you're not doing it in legal ways, or you're making mistakes. I'm not going to claim anything about what they're doing. i I know nothing. But fast forward to like now, like with the companies that are building out, they want to leverage the latest technology that that is kind of under the radar. Even like when it comes to live music doesn't have a lot of things that the digital streaming music industry has. And why doesn't it have that? It can. It's just that no one has sort of taken all the pieces and put it together. And there are reasons like I mean, we could have a whole other podcast about why. But ultimately, I guess the young, there's always this sort of young guard, regardless of age. Even it's just like in terms of like just thinking and new thinking approaches to music. People love music, so that's all something that people always want to solve problems in it. And something I love, like where you brought up, I advise and I'm on the board of a lot of
Mhm.
companies in the entertainment space. I want to help them navigate, leveraging these new technologies and connecting them with the right people so that they don't just waste their time and then get sued into oblivion, or they do things in a way where they can approach it. They don't make the same mistakes twice, and like that's what I do at like when I'm consulting in that capacity of don't make those same mistakes, at least learn from the past and figure out how to navigate very smartly now.
Interesting, interesting. As you know, the digital age of streaming music, I wouldn't say it kind of coming to an end, but every era has a beginning and has an end, and there's new technologies, a way we're going to consume content. Black
Mm-hmm.
Lion came in and say, hey, we're going to revolutionize this. We're going to change things around, and we're going to give the artists more control, the proper evaluation, and let them do what they want to do, be worth what they're really supposed to be worth, and make the money they need to make. How do you think that Black Lion will help artists navigate through that era, that digital and the near future that we're coming in, which is going to be a little bit different than we're used to, just a pair of headphones or ear pods and a phone. It's going to be more that immersive or immersion kind of way. The experience is all about. It's going to be more the experience. You know,
Yeah.
you'll be in the artist, you'll be in the creators. They're going to be the new artist.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep. I think the way that we're approaching that is looking at catalog valuation and an
Hmm.
artist's career overall.
Hmm.
When you're looking at an artist and like what they're worth, you don't just look at the number of streams they have on any one platform and sort of
Hmm.
add it up and look at their followers. At one point, it was like, oh, if you have a ton of Instagram followers, then we'll just sign you immediately, and that became the valuation. And all of these ways that we have been valuating artists has been very temporary.
Hmm.
And if you look at I've applied machine learning models to analyze so many patterns for so many different types of artist careers, and people in the industry, if you ask them like where they spend all their time evaluating an artist's career, they would say that like, hey, it's not just these levers like streams and followers that is the indicator for if someone's going to be big or if someone's going to be viral. It's something else, and that something else changes over time. So Black Lion's way of applying technology to be able to analyze what those patterns are, surface it, and suggest ways to tackle that and like model out different scenarios without a PhD is something that like is going to really kind of put information
Yeah.
in artists' hands. And for our customers, it's actually enabled our customers to be able to sign more artists and invest more in more artists' careers because they were able to process and see the full catalog overview. Like if an artist
Amazing.
is on Snark Tank,
Yes.
then they have a whole following that you don't even know about that goes to see them in person.
Yeah. Yes. Alicia, you know, you in the, you know, I don't want to say look back at your career, but you're still young. You got plenty of miles, and plenty of mountains to climb and goals to achieve. You know, a lot of our young, well, you know what? I shouldn't say young, all ages. A lot of our
Mm,
listeners and viewers, people are going to watch this episode and they're going to be extremely inspired by you, motivated, and say, you know what? Wow, look at Alicia. She accomplished. She done what she done. She, you know, she made her mark into the industry, and not just one industry, few industries, and she carved her own path. She knew what she wanted, and she done it all. You know, no precedence taken. And what's your advice for a lot of these entrepreneurs who wants to take that, especially women? You know, big fan, big advocate of women in tech and leadership and empowering more women, obviously.
mhm.
So please give us your advice to a lot of these women who's going to be looking up to you and after watching this episode and want to follow your footsteps.
Well, I would say unapologetically uh, keep always growing, and it sounds cliche, but be yourself. Do whatever you want. I mean,
Don't be afraid. You're saying don't be afraid.
well, like it's the I say like do what you want because people want to innovate, they want to build something, they want to do something, and then they don't, and the reasons why is a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's they don't know how, and and then like sometimes it's just they're too busy and like they're too busy with other things. And for each of those, like I think for the fear aspect, like don't be afraid. Like that advice that you had said, I would agree with that. Like what's the worst that could happen, and just think through all of the worst scenarios, and don't do the things that cause those scenarios, because you're like there's well, when you actually start mapping out everything to be afraid of, like, and you're just going to you're going to see that those things aren't actually going to happen. You go on stage and like do a speech, most of the time people are just going to stare at you. They aren't going to laugh, they aren't going to throw anything, like that doesn't really happen. Like in that, I would think of that as a worst scenario. So
What's on the
next,
horizon for Alisha?
mm, on the horizon, I like building out, really scaling Black Lion out to this vision
Hmm.
that I see it doing, in the industry, in the music and tech industry, which is to make sure that we can. That creatives can really have this clear valuation, can be able to manage their music career a bit more directly, and leverage this technology to define their worth, do partnerships, and do it in just an easy, simple way, from their phone. Like that's what I intend on doing now and next, deploying this at scale, to all of the small businesses out there.
Before we say goodbye to this amazing, insightful interview that I'm also really extremely enjoying it, um, what you think, or what's your thought, or you've been in the business, in the music business. Where do you see the music business going?
Uh, oh gosh, I'm not a pro at that.
But you have
I
your
see,
opinions, you have your vision, you have your thoughts.
I
It's
see,
very valid.
I see the music industry continuing what it has been doing, where it has, over the last, I'll only focus on, let's say, the last like 25 to 30 years. But I mean, you could even like stretch beyond that, where the music industry has always enabled partnerships and, a broad range of people to be able to engage in this art form. And this art form having a business model, having those business models, and as technology has innovated other medias, the music industry has been the pro at actually like innovating alongside it. And I saw personally in my last role with TuneCore just how the tech and music industry work together to really navigate the unknown, and we're doing way better now than we've done in
Amazing. Yes. Yes. Well, Alicia, thank you very much. I really want to thank you for joining us today and taking the time from your extremely busy schedule to appear on our humble show, Entrepreneurs in Tech. Thank you for joining us. And Innovate presents Entrepreneurs in Tech. Be sure to follow us on social media. Until next time, keep innovating, think out of the box, and stay curious, please. Thank you.
the
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share. Innovate presents Entrepreneurs in Tech podcast. And if you're joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.